So today we start leadership. We have a guest speaker, General Caldwell. He's going to kind of go cover leadership with you as we transition to leadership. And this is going to help due to the fact that we're missing JCLC, some other training that's going to benefit you as you guys transition and start running the battalion. So really pay attention to this. This is the time to figure out what your leadership style is and how you're going to move ahead as you transition from a senior to college. So General Caldwell, floor is yours.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. Hey, listen to the junior class 2021. Thanks for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you this morning. I've got a little slide presentation that I'm going to use to kind of just make a point that I want to leave with you all today to have you start thinking about. And then at the end, there'd be more than ample time if you want to ask some questions too. Here's what I would ask the class of 2021. You're the first class that's going to come back after the virus thing passes. You're going to be the ones that are going to be the pace setters back at Georgia Military College Prep School. Colonel Grant and I have been down there with the team talking a lot about what does that mean and the example you all are going to set and how you bring the school back in August when we all come back to start resuming classes. But I will ask you as an individual, just start thinking about what is it that the class of 2021 wants to be known for? What's the legacy that you want to leave with the school? So when I was chatting last night with my son, Will, and daughter, Ann, I asked them, they're, 19 and 17 classes. And I said, hey, what do you all think your legacy was that you left? And it is interesting when the senior leadership team gets together and we talk about classes, there actually is something about each class that you can talk about. Each one has their own personality. And 21, you all have the unique opportunity to be an exceptional special class. And I hope that you all will take advantage of that. You've got the personalities, you've got the character, you've got the drive, the commitment in this class to literally do whatever you all want here next year at Georgia Military College for the whole prep school. And so with that, the story I want to talk to you about today, I want to talk to you, and you've probably heard me say it before, make a difference every day. That's the most important thing. You should probably wake up every day, ask yourself, how can I make a difference today? What is it that I can do? In my case, Bill Caldwell, what's the thing I can do today to make a difference? Perhaps today I call a friend who's really sick. And I reach out and touch him or her and just tell them, sure, thinking about you, praying about you, worried about you. Maybe it's you all reaching out to one of your grandparents or one of your aunts and uncles. Maybe it's a long-time friend you haven't talked to in some time and you reach out to them. Maybe it's a person who has had an impact on you in your life and you just want during this time period to reach out to them and just tell them how special they've been. Or, as I've said before, when you walk around campus, maybe it's picking up a piece of trash. I mean, you think some people get carried away thinking that my little action won't make a difference, when in fact it's the collective actions of everyone that make an enormous difference. And so what I want to do today is share that story on two people that you know about, you've heard about, you've read about, and just share a little of their stories one more time. For both of them, they made a difference by stepping up and exhibiting moral courage. In a time of adversity, in a time of challenges, they had the moral courage to do the right thing. And all of you at Georgia Military College are in that same position. You're being provided with an incredible opportunity when you leave here to exhibit moral courage. And even more importantly, as the seniors, as our rising seniors, as the class of 2021, you can do it as seniors. So let me share these two stories. And I'll start off by saying, to do that, to make a difference, you can't just wake up. You got to be prepared. You have to internalize that I'm going to show up and do something. You've got to commit to yourself. It's not anything that Major Van Dyne's going to do to you or Colonel Grant or myself or anybody else. It's a decision you make. It's an individual personal decision you make about how you want to live your life. But I would ask you, if every day you woke up and said, today I'm going to make a difference by whatever it is, that could have an enormous impact, not only on the time period you have at Georgia Military College, at your home, in your families, and even in the communities that we live in. So let me share the two people. I'm going to throw some slides up that I'm going to walk through with you. I'm going to bring them up now, and I'm going to, obviously, you won't see me as I'm doing that. Okay, I'm getting there, in case you wonder what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get it so, there we go. Okay, moral courage. A lot of people wonder what does moral courage really mean. It means doing the right thing when nobody's listening. It means doing the right thing when somebody else, you know, would not do it. It means stepping up and being counted when it really matters. And it could be as something simple as you see some brand new ninth grader getting picked on by somebody out there in formation. They're making fun of him or her because they look a little different, they act a little different, their voice is a little different. And you don't really want to be the one to interfere. You kind of think it's funny yourself, but you're the senior class. You're the leadership, and you're the ones who should exhibit the moral courage to step in and say, you know what? That's probably not how we want to treat people. How about let's not do that? So the question is, what's my challenge to you all that I want to leave you with here from today as we do this? So the challenge I want to leave you with is never just show up. Have a plan when you get up. Think through how you want to act your day. And it almost has to be something you actually do think about for a few minutes. Otherwise, you'll go through the day and not have ever thought about what you wanted to do or what difference you wanted to make. Now, people show up in many different ways, and there's all kinds of ways to do it. I'm gonna give you a short example of somebody who deliberately showed up to make a statement and felt pretty good about themselves. Now, this person, he has decided he's gonna make a statement, he's gonna have an entrance, and he's gonna go out and do something different today than he's probably done before. So he committed himself, just like I'm going to ask you to as a class of 2021, to go out there and make a difference. Make a difference every day in some shape or form. And think through what you want to do and be that change that you desire to see happen. Decide what it is that you want to occur and then help be that change that you want to see happen. It's the sign of greatness is those that have a plan, know what they want to do, commit themselves to it, and then go make it happen. And that's when you see greatness occur as you hear the expression used. Make a difference in the lives of others. People very often have asked me, what is leadership really about? And there's some great military definitions. It's the art of being able to make others think that what you want them to do, they thought that they wanted to do themselves. The art of influencing others. I'll tell you, to me, something I've learned after years and years serving in the military and even being here is when you make a difference in the life of others, that's leadership. That's taking the position you're given, whatever that position is, the authority that you have, whatever that authority is. The fact that you're going to be seniors is a huge authority just in of itself. It doesn't have to be rank. It's just that the placement of you in the senior class is going to give every one of you a tremendous amount of authority. Use it. Use it to make a difference in the life of others, not for yourself. And that's the big key lesson there. So if you look at this dog here, perfect example. Figuring a way to make a difference in the life of somebody else. You know, great little video. We've got a man that decided about how he wanted to show up, and we've got a dog that decided they were going to make a difference in the life of others. Bigger dog can swim stronger, can help somebody else out of a difficult position. Can one person make a difference? You bet. every day you can make a difference in wherever you are if you want to. You really can. You've got enormous power that you don't even fully realize by just deciding, I am going to make a difference today by that. When I go to the store with my mom or dad, or I run the errand for my parents, I'm going to make sure that that person who's stocking the shelves down at Kroger, that nobody's even probably recognized, they walk by and never even say a word to, I'm going to stop and say thanks. Thanks for continuing to stock these shelves, because I know it's a lot of work, and I know you're out here in the coronavirus environment the whole time. So thanks for what you're doing. The truck driver and the others who are continuing to make a real difference right now. So let's talk about two people I know you know about, and I'm just going to share a little about their stories with you again, because I think they're great stories to share. And the first one is Rosa Parks. Everybody has heard of Rosa Parks. You know the story about her. She refused to get out of her seat on a bus, and in doing so, that one little act, she literally changed history. When she sat in that bus and refused to get out of her seat, you know she never even thought she would change history. She just was exhausted that day. So back at that time period in 1955, when this occurred, it was down in Montgomery, Alabama. And like most of the South, it was still segregated. And they had what they call back there black codes. So December 55, Montgomery, Alabama, we see this start to happen. The black codes are in effect. And what the black code says is that if you're on a bus, you have to sit in the back if you're black. You have to sit in the back of the bus. In fact, it's so bad that if you want to get on the bus, you have to enter through the front door of the bus, pay your bus fee, then you've got to get off the bus and walk to the back entrance to the bus and come in through the back entrance. You're not allowed to walk down the aisle between all the white people. The black codes. This is the environment that Rosa Parks is living in, and these codes are very stringently enforced. People just don't deviate from them. If they do, they can be arrested, maybe even beaten up too. So people are told, when you get to the back of the bus, if you're black and there's not enough seats, then put 3 people to a seat. But if a white person walks to the back of the bus and wants that seat, then you're all supposed to get up and give it to the white person, because that's part of the black codes that were in existence. Well, on that day, Rosa Parks was sitting in the back on a seat with 2 other men, black men, when a white came back there and wanted the seat. The 2 black men immediately got up and left the seat. But Rosa Parks, who had just worked a real long day as a seamstress, was exhausted. And she refused to move, just out of sheer exhaustion. She needed a seat to sit on. Well, the bus driver came back there to help out this white person and said, listen, you've got to move. If you don't, you will be arrested. Rosa Parks understood what that meant, but she, again, was just so exhausted, she couldn't move. She just decided that day, I've had enough. I'm not going to move. If you want to arrest me, go ahead and arrest me. So they did. They took Rosa Parks to jail. They arrested her. They booked her and made her post bond to get out. When Rosa Parks left the police station that day, she went to her church. There in Montgomery, Alabama, Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. You may have visited it at one point or another if you've been to Montgomery, Alabama and seen it. But she went there to talk to her preacher and say how much she objected to the fact that she was treated so differently and that the black codes were not fair. So went in there, other people joined her. They were very upset that this old, small, petite woman who was very frail and all she did was work hard, had been thrown in jail for refusing to give her seat to a white person. The moral courage that she exhibited in doing that must have been enormous. To have known that the consequences, the people talking about her, the way that people would treat her was going to be really bad. So she went and she talked to her preacher. And who do you think your brand new preacher was? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And between the two of them and other members of the congregation, they decided they were going to change things. Just because Rosa Parks happened to be Black, she was treated differently than everybody else. And the story out of that is you do not have to be rich and powerful to change the world. You simply need moral courage. And the moral courage that each of you in the class of 2021 can exhibit is by taking care of that underclassman, by making sure that people don't pick on other people, by not allowing somebody to be mean and bullying, by recognizing that everybody is a person who should be treated with respect and dignity. Moral courage. You need to ask yourself, do I, as the member of the class of 2021, have the moral courage when I go to school back in August to make sure that people are treated with respect and dignity, that I don't say negative things about others, that I don't try to take other people down, and that when I see something being done wrong, do I step in and make a difference in the world? One small little act can make a difference in the world. And that's what Rosa Parks did that day when she refused to get up and give her seat away to somebody else who had been working just like she had been. So let's talk about another person. This is probably one of my most favorite presidents to talk about, Harry S. Truman. And I think most of you know the story about Harry S. Truman as we go through it. You know, he became president after Franklin Delano Roosevelt died, FDR. FDR was infamous, had been in the office of the presidency for almost 12 years, had walked us through the Great Depression, through most of all World War II. I mean, he was an icon in America. And I can tell you, when you stopped and looked at Harry S. Truman at that time, your first thoughts were, well, he didn't even have a college degree. And he was a store owner one time, and that failed. And he's just from a small town in Missouri. The question was he ready to rise to the occasion and exhibit the moral courage that was necessary to continue to lead our nation through the end of World War II and the post-war period? And then when you look at it, there was jokes. If you go back and read history at that time, they made all kinds of jokes about Harry Truman. You know, they'd call him Harry who? And to err is, and you've heard the expression human, well, they made it Truman, because that's how little they thought. But the question you have to ask is, how did Truman respond to this? Did he have the moral courage to stand up and continue to do the right thing? And what you're going to find out when you take a look at some of the things that occurred during his period, you'll see that he continually had a vision and great courage. He woke up every day with intent to go do something. He prepared himself for the day. He didn't just show up. He went out and committed himself to making a difference. And so in the election year of 1948, when he's now been in office about 3 years, having moved into the presidency because of the death of the previous president, Truman runs for office. And many of you know the story that occurred during that time period, you know, and you've heard all about the Dewey wins the presidency, and then we find out Dewey didn't win the presidency. It was really Truman that won. Well, here was two things that he had to make a decision on during an election year. Our military in 1948, post-World War II, was still desegregated. We still had not allowed blacks into white units. We hadn't integrated them together. We allowed white officers to command black units, but we didn't do any integration other than that. And so the question was asked, should we integrate our military? We just finished fighting a great World War II. We had whites and blacks dying and serving our nation. Should they not be treated the same in the armed forces? And so against every possible person, he made the decision he was going to integrate the military. He was going to desegregate it. He was going to make us one entity. The military didn't want it done. The politicians didn't want it done. And in fact, there was a guy named Senator Strom Thurmond from South Carolina that was absolutely so opposed to this being done that he told Truman, if you do that, I'm going to run against you and pull enough votes away from you that Dewey wins. And he did run against Truman. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that he pulled enough votes, but it was, as we all know, very, very close. And then the second one was the state of Israel. There was a very anti-Semitic, people didn't like the Jews. They had just finished, millions being killed in concentration camps in World War II with people doing nothing about it. Millions being burned to death and shot, separated from each other. I mean, we treated them terribly. The world did. And nobody stood up for the Jews at that time. So now they're down there in the state of Israel and is trying to be established as a state. And there's no feeling in the United States of America that we want to recognize in this state of Israel, where Jews now will be able to actually grow and congregate. But again, Truman, recognizing and having the moral courage to do what is right, decides that he's going to go ahead and do that. He did not hesitate to do it during an election year, doing what he knew was the right thing for our nation. And when you stop and look at Truman's time, this isn't the only thing he did. Those were two huge decisions that took tremendous moral courage for him to make. But what about the bombs? Do you remember in 1944 when he came in, or 45 when he came into office? We were still towards the end of World War II. It wasn't over. And he found out about the Manhattan Project, and he knew that we had these things called atomic bombs. They had never been dropped before. And he was told, yep, we can go drop this bomb, and it'll kill tens of thousands of people. But it might be what will force the Japanese to surrender. The decision that weighed on him to make that decision to sacrifice the lives of those Japanese people in order to save the lives of others. And as he weighed the cost of both decisions, he made the decision to drop the bombs. Huge. I can't even imagine what he went through. And then here we had just finishing World War II. We were getting our lives back to normal. Business was resuming. People were back into their routine when all of a sudden the Russians shut off Berlin. And we couldn't get into Berlin anymore. They did what was called the Berlin blockade. And he knew that they had to get supplies, food and water into the people there. And he helped organize the most massive airlift in the history of the world and flew supplies into Berlin while it was blockaded from the ground and train to ensure that people there could survive. And he did it knowing that that could just possibly precipitate another world war. People tend to forget the enormity of that decision too, but two more that he had to make also during that time period. So the question is, can one person make a difference? And the answer to that is absolutely. You can look at people like Rosa Parks and Harry Truman, who did the right thing and made enormous differences in this world. I mean, huge. Today, the Armed Forces of the United States, it has no respect, or doesn't even look at color when they make decisions on who to promote, who to move into positions. We're a totally integrated force. And when you look at Rosa Parks and what she did, that started the entire civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King, who was inspired by what she did sitting on the seat in that bus, which led to the civil rights movement. It's not always easy. In fact, it's very hard to make those kind of decisions when you have to do that, especially when nobody else has done it before. But if you've been taught the moral courage to do what is right, if you in fact start practicing as the class of 2021 as seniors here at Georgia Military College, doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, you in fact will start building within you the ability when that time comes. And for every one of you, it may not be next year while you're a senior, it may not be while you're in college, but there is going to be a time in your life when you're going to be confronted with that decision that's incredibly hard to make. And the question is, are you going to travel the path that nobody else has gone and do the right thing? Or are you going to take the easier wrong and not make that tough decision? So that's the moral of the story. The overall pitch is, hey, never just show up, come prepared, commit yourself to make a difference, and take the lessons that you're going to be taught here at Georgia Military College, and be prepared internally for when that time happens, you know what your moral compass is and what you want to do. So the bottom visual I'm going to leave you with out of this message today is, let's get out there and make a difference. And it can start today. Okay. With that, let me turn it back over to you, Todd. I'll be glad to take whatever questions anybody might have that they want to ask about.
All right. So if you have questions, you know, one at a time, of course. So go ahead. Any questions out there?
I know with all your classmates on, nobody wants to ask a question. That's really hard. Hey, let me offer this to you. I sat down with Hudson. I was chatting with Hudson. I said, "Hey, Hudson, I know he hates this when I pull him out like this, but I said, you know, as you all are going through thinking of being seniors next year, what are some of the tough things you had to do and are thinking about even? And, you know, one of the questions always is, how do I influence my peers? How do I get my classmates as a company commander, as a squad leader, as a platoon leader, in whatever role you're in, or the fact that you're just a senior and you've got the underclass looking at you as a senior, regardless of what rank you're wearing on your shoulder. How do you get them to do what you want them to do? How do you get them to follow your instructions? And I guess the thing I would tell you there, it starts with first being a follower. If you haven't heard that before, the best leaders are also the best followers. They know how to follow others. They understand what it means to do what people tell you to do. So as a senior, regardless of what rank you have, if you want to be able to influence and tell other people things that they need to do, which you're going to be required to do as the seniors, as the class of 2021, it starts with you first being a leader yourself, taking the self-responsibility, making sure that you don't say demeaning things to other people, that you treat people with respect and courtesy, that you make sure that if you're supposed to have a haircut, you've got the haircut. If your uniform is supposed to be straight, your uniform is straight. I mean, you start by doing those things first before you tell anybody else what to do. Don't think that leadership comes without enormous power and responsibility. And it's that responsibility to use it in a way to serve others. Again, go back to what excellence is about. You know, define leadership. Defining leadership is about making a difference in the life of somebody else every day. And it's whether you help them, you direct them, you guide them, you talk to them, but you don't do it by being demeaning and kicking them to the curb. So how do you get your peers to follow you? By being the example that you want them to be. By showing them by your actions what you want them to do. And then once you've done that, once you've established yourself as that person, they'll much more readily follow you. They'll much more do what you ask because they realize they have respect and admiration for the fact you're not asking them to do anything you haven't already done yourself. If you're the leader and you're supposed to be out of formation as squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, doesn't matter. You don't show up 10 seconds before the formation. How are you helping be the leader when you're the last person there? You go out a few minutes early, you make sure you're on time, you make sure you've addressed any issues, you're ready to go. You didn't just show up, you came prepared. You understood there was a responsibility that went with the position that you have. You did not just show up, you came prepared. So leadership is about first and foremost being a great follower and understanding what's required and then doing that yourself and then imparting it to others. All right, that's question number one I've taken. Is anybody else? You know, Hudson would tell me when I get home, he said, "Hey, Dad, 30 minutes is about the max that we like to be on the Zoom meeting. So once you hit 30 minutes," and he just sent me a text and said, "Dad, it's 30 minutes. Okay, Hudson, I got it. It's 30 minutes. But is there anybody else that wants to ask a question? I'm more than willing to take any questions you may have. Yep, I got the Friday morning crowd. Half of them, I can see their beds in the background. I understand where they're all hanging out. The other half did actually get up, move downstairs, and go someplace. Listen, let me close with this, and I'll just tell you this, class 21. I'm actually thrilled that I'm gonna have the opportunity to be able to work with you all next year. I'm really proud of what you've accomplished already. You all are going through some really challenging times right now, and the attitude and the way you all are approaching it is superb. It really is. I've had an opportunity to get on a couple other classes and watch and listen, and I'm just really excited about what Georgia Military College prep students are doing during this time period. So as you come back this summer, and we will come back, we will resume classes in August. For the class of 20, if you're wondering, yep, we're working through right now how we're going to do their graduation, their baccalaureate, their honors night, their prom, and everything else. Those will occur between June and July. We do want to make those happen. So the leadership team down in the prep school is working that right now to make sure that those events occur in the life of all of our students while they're here at Georgia Military College. Okay, Major Van Dyne, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much, you all, for allowing me to be with you this morning, and have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Todd.